Um, Thank you very much for that question. And I listened to the other panelists as they spoke, and I must say that a, a lot of bases have been covered already by a lot of the points that they have brought. And the way I like to put it is that the role of government must always be the role of an enabler, supporting the system to run. I think NBS latest data says that Nigerians spent about 22 trillion naira on food. The federal government budget for 2019 was just about 8 trillion naira. So that's the whole budget for everything the federal government wants to do, which shows you that the real funds and the real capacity to grow and develop this sector lies in the private sector. So the guys who have spoken on the from the private sector and have laid out the issues have rightly put that out. And the role of government is to provide support to them and provide the right policies. And when you say the graduates, there are a lot of graduates coming out of our universities that are not necessarily agriculture graduates, but you see across the whole value chain. So when you have farms, for example, you're going to need engineers that will work on tractors on the farms. You're going to need civil engineers that will build the roads, access roads to the farms. You're going to need the business people that will do all the analysis, financials, revenue, profit, etc. So there's a lot of focus that has to be put on providing the necessary support across the whole value chain. And this is why, as part of the economic sustainability plan, which the VP submitted to the president yesterday, one of the key sectors that is being looked at is agriculture. But also beyond that, another key sector being looked at is infrastructure. How can we build the right infrastructure that will support agriculture? So basically infrastructure for development. And these are the various areas in which all these guys will be able to key in. Another area that the sustainability plan is looking at is in how we can support the digital economy and how we can provide right digital skills for young people. So when you're looking at agriculture in Nigeria compared with other countries, for example, and you're looking at the yield per hectare, you'll find that a farmer in Israel can get 1,000 tons from a certain space of farmland, while a farmer in Nigeria will get less than 10% of that because of the quality of the input, the quality of the fertilizer, the quality of the seedlings, etc. Which is why one of the key things that the economic sustainability plan is looking at is there is a guarantee market that mitigates post-harvest losses. A friend in Benue was telling me that over 80% of the fruits grown in Benue every year goes to waste because there are no access routes to the farms, because there are no processing facilities, and all of that. So these are the things that the government will be looking at supporting the private sector to be able to build. Also, one of the key things that the government is also looking at is a government buyback scheme, which means go to the farm and you do not need to worry, because I heard one of the panelists was speaking about the fact that a farmer goes to the farm and doesn't even know who he's selling to. So the government is putting forward a government buyback scheme to ensure that everything that is farmed, government buys and government is able to store in strategic reserves, and also to be basically government becoming the main off-taker of a couple of these products and produce. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you've talked about the fact that we need to extend the value chain, and that way we can take care of the graduates who are not necessarily major in agriculture. But we also need to look at the sector as an opportunity for entrepreneurs. So whether or not you studied anything relating to agriculture, you should find some aspects of the production to be attractive. I'm a chemical engineer, for example, but I have a poultry farm. So something definitely spurred me there, and it's important that we also take into cognizance the fact that these days it has little to do with what we studied, but more about the interest. So we still need to think of ways to nurture the interest of our young ones from university, so that when they come out, they will not see farming as a dirty job or something for the never-do-wells. But it should be something that anybody can go into and make a living. So I think we'll come back to you on that. Let's hear from Dr. Dari now. We've spoken about policies. Someone said that we need policies in that sector, we need regulations in that sector. But we've also heard some people talk about the fact that most farmers do not have blueprints, and that's why they are unable to get finance. Now, sir, you have been in consulting for donkey years, and you've worked with several governments, and you are aware of the policies that some of us have come up with, some of the governments have come up with. You know the ones that have succeeded and the ones that have not. In addition to sharing your thoughts on the need for blueprints, I also want to know from your point of view, what is the missing link between the stated objectives of these policies that have been put forward in the past and the delivery of the targeted goals? Why have some of them not worked? Let's hear from you. And we would also want to hear your thoughts on what the other speakers have talked about, the blueprints, the lack of blueprints and all that, and why the sector is still the way it is. So, Dr. Dari.
Okay, thank you, Winston. Thank you so much for a very enterprising coordination. I would like to first of all say that I agree with the fact that government is to provide structures and system, but these structures and system must be created by professionals and people that have capacity to develop them. And it's not enough to create structures and system, but it's also important to get them to talk to themselves. So we have structures, we have systems, but they are not talking to themselves. Yes, we have a NISA, we have Bank of Agriculture, we have SMEDA, we have all the structures, they are there. Maybe the systems are also available, but there's no engagement. That is why you heard Ibrahim very, very well, that they've done quite a lot, and I'm aware they are doing so well, but going down to the bottom of the pyramid, there are certain things that is happening to the farmers in their ecosystem that is, they are clueless, and they are trying to say, okay, how do we onboard these guys that are the primary owners of this ecosystem, the guys that will go down to bring the thing from the grassroots. Secondly, I am not aware that consultants are the one that should be responsible 100% for policy failure. Let me ask you this question. Sometimes templates are created and they are unclear. Policies are created, they are supposed to be called templates, because there's a difference between a template and a policy. Once you create a policy, it should be driven by system and structures. So if you tell me that you want to export yam, and you didn't tell me whether you have cleared from the country where you are exporting to, whether you have certification, you did not tell me whether you have processed that yam in certain composite form that is acceptable to the country where you are taking the yam to. You did not tell me how the yam will be transported comfortably without experiencing damage. There are several strategies that come to make a policy work. Until you are able to put those things on the template and perform functional tests, you don't have a policy. The second reason why Agric may not work in a hurry is because we already have a superstructure, an economic superstructure that is not producing but is borrowing. So you want me to bring money, $1 billion to Agric from the money I have borrowed from IMF? So that is the reason why I agree totally with Kayode that we need to onboard private sector. More than ever before, we need private sector to the rescue of our economic emancipation. So you don't sit down and say structures and systems are not working. People have to make them to work. So if policies are created and there are no performance dashboard, you did not tell me who is responsible for what, you did not tell me the deadlines, you did not set up committees that can be punished, or you didn't put any punitive structure in place to hold somebody responsible or accountable for policy damage or for policy collapse. The policy will keep coming and going. Then who are the consultants that even came up with this policy? Were they selected properly? Yes, do they have capacity? Do they have the right skills? Do they know agriculture? Have they practiced? Do they understand the ecosystem? Then you want to also ask, are there feasibility that are strategic? Or we are just bringing foreign policies and there are no local content, no domestication. We bring them in and we force them into the ecosystem called Agri, and we want them to work. It will not work. Now, coming back to the missing link now, I just try to talk to what my colleague have said, very fantastic contribution. Most of the time, the funding deficiency can make policies not to work. You just heard what our brother from Vice President Office just said. You can imagine the figure, the statistic that he gave. What is happening in the industry and the entire budget of the country. So you don't expect government to respond to this crisis. The truth is that government has lost capacity to respond. What we are looking at them to do is to create the climate, which they are doing now. The Vice President is doing that. I mean, this document has been submitted. If it is scalable, practicable, and pragmatic, then it is now left for us to make it work. That's the thought I can share on that. But coming to the issue of instability, once you create a policy and the policy drivers are not stable, you bring a palm sec today and you remove him tomorrow. The new one comes with its own policies on the same issue, in the same ecosystem. You bring a minister today, he goes away with his thoughts. You bring a new one, he's looking at another direction. So there is no consistency in governance. These things are composite factors that affect policy implementation. Then there's policy abandonment. And policy abandonment can be wrong conception. Once there's no thoughtful preparation for a policy, that it will be abandoned. And how do you prepare policy? Everything must be on the template. The finance, the stakeholders must have a buy-in. The entire stakeholder in the ecosystem where the policy is expected to work and to function must be singing from the same hymn book. Once you bring a policy and certain stakeholders are left behind, two things happen. It's either they frustrate the entire policy or they give less contribution or less cognizance to the policy. So we need a holistic approach in developing our policies into a template. And the template, you have all the strategy. We need to have the cost implication of developing such, of implementing such policy. We need to know who is responsible for the implementation. We need to put deadlines. We need to even set out expectation. Policies must be driven by performance dashboard. And the timing of the policy is also very critical. The timing of the policy is very critical. So talking about policy not working, it will be difficult for a policy to work when the structures and systems that will drive the policy is not available, when the finance to ensure that the policy is implemented is not there, when the timing is wrong, when the terms of reference that is given to the consultant that developed the policy is to develop a paper, hand over, and get out. So for me, I think a consultant should do a hand-holding for the policy that he has developed. So if NISA has been created to bankroll the risk in agricultural ecosystem, they should allow them to do the job. They should give them enough adequate empowerment. They should give them a buffer. They should allow stakeholders, they should create fora and forums where stakeholders can relate with NISA so that we sit down together and brainstorm. They should give them that enabling environment. The finance should be there. They should bring in the private sector. The microfinance bank managing directors should be talking to the MD of NISA every night, every day, coming up with how it will work. The commercial bank should be relating with him. The Central Bank of Nigeria, Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, all of these banks, the SMEDA of all the world, there should be a bedroom that is gathering these guys, thinking about Nigeria. Where we are in ICU. Oil price has come down. We are in intensive care units. The economy is not smiling. Beyond rhetorics and beyond conversation, we need to chart solution today. That's why when I was doing my opening talk, I said this is the greatest palliative that this platform has given to Nigeria. We need to know what to do. Beyond discussion and conversation, we need to come up with practical steps of coming up with agricultural policy. How many tubers of yam do you want to sell to buy a Hummer Jeep? We have a lifestyle. How many bags of rice do you need to gather to build a house of 100 million? This is our lifestyle, and if Agric is to bankroll our new lifestyle, we need to put policies that can make Agric scalable. How many farmers have harvesters? How many of them has irrigation equipment? Have we talked about smart agriculture? Who is going to drive it? Where is the template? Where is the policy? Who is going to promote it? Who do we need on board? We need a performance template. It's beyond policy. Policy will die if there is no performance template. We need a performance template that will mention the name of the people that will be involved, the amount of money that we need, the timing, the structure that we drive it, the system that we drive it. It's not good enough to just make policies. That is why most of our policies are weak. They are epileptic. They don't go far. So all of these are very serious and catalogs of problems that we need to bring on board as we discuss this matter. So it's not about consultants. Of course, consultancy may be skillful, he may have capacity, but if my TO is develop a white paper on agriculture and hand it over, I'm not involved in implementation, I'm not involved in analysis. I will do my job, take my money, I walk away, and you now bring certain people that don't know what I've written to come and implement the policy. That will be a disconnect.
Exactly.
So in all, let me put it together. We need a performance dashboard. Don't just develop policies. Tell us how the policy will work. Tell us who will make it work. Tell us how much we need. Tell us where it will work. Tell us the expectation. Tell us the deadlines. Put this thing together so that we can hold somebody responsible. Let us know what is government doing, what is NISA doing, what is Bank of Agriculture doing, what is farmers doing, what is Microfinance Bank doing, what is commercial banks doing, what is the ADB doing. Let's know the stakeholders and let us know their jobs and let us know their deadlines and let us know their performance expectation. Then when we put all this on board, we know who to hold responsible, we know who to write to, we know how to hold meetings, because we just do things from different angles and we are not coherent. These are the major problems that we have.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Derek. The problems we have, quite honestly, we cannot exhaust them on this call, but you have shed some light on them. Thank you. Now, we've heard from everybody, so I will just pick and cherry pick based on the conversation and how things have flowed. Baseline, we need more structure in the sector. We cannot deal with farmers in various fragments. And I know that NISAL has what they have titled the NISAL Agro Cooperative Initiative. I believe that this is where we should start from to get the farmers together. So I want Ibrahim to shed some light on the NISAL Agro Cooperative Initiative.
I'm pleased to be back again. Let me quickly put it this way. I've said it earlier. We must be able to compete with the farmers from Thailand, Philippines, Latin America, and the rest of the other parts of the world. I've already mentioned that our farmers, they are so fragmented, 1 hectare, 0.5 hectares. You cannot do business with 0.5 hectares and things like that. So as part of this scheme mechanism, NISAL will now come up with what we call this agro-geo-cooperative. I know that one will ask, we've been having a lot of cooperatives in Nigeria and they have not worked. Yes, you are right. Agricultural cooperatives, they have not worked simply because all this while you form cooperatives just based on, either community or friends, they just come together, or close family members, they just come together and they appoint chairman, secretary, and just say they have a cooperative. And if we extend the facility to them, they will not be able to produce, they will not deliver, and the contract with the off-taker will definitely fail. So that's the reason why we entitle our own agro-geo, which means geography, which means location, which means the farmland. This cooperative will form them based on the same location. Farmers that are in the same location, irrespective of whether they are friends, they are neighbors, and everything. One, for you, the most suitable location for maize production. For you to produce cocoa, it has to be the most suitable location.
Hello?
Cocoa, cashew, and that is why the agro-geo cooperative. So how do we arrange the cooperative? We first say the minimum unit of a cooperative, maximum unit of a geo cooperative is 250 hectares. Why the choose of 250 hectares? Is to have a unit that will be enough to make sense to commercial bank, to make sense to an investor, and to make sense to a market that is going to offtake That is the reason why we now choose 250 hectares. When farmers come together, a block of 250 hectares, it is easy for these farmers to get our guarantee, get our facilitation, to access funding, and then to be monitored because they are in the same location, to make sure that they apply the best agronomic practice so that they will produce and meet the specification of either the export market, the industrial domestic market, or the consumer market, so that it will be end-to-end, everything will be put together. So a job cooperative can continue to grow and become what you call a cluster. So it's becoming more and more big businesses. I'm happy somebody mentioned Israel. I cannot recall the name. I think my colleague from the office of the vice president mentioned Israel. Yes, the kind of yield you get from Israel. What do you have in Israel? They have what they call kibbutz. So kibbutz are like cooperatives. They come together, they merge their farmland, and they are doing their agri as a business. That is similar thing we want to do here also. So that farmers will now begin to see this as a business. There will be collective decision of what farmers are to produce, how and for who this is to be produced. So what we have now is we now instill what we call a governance structure into this cooperative, so that there will be visibility, and the banks, the investors will now have hope, a kind of trust, and issue their investment or credit, extend their credit to farmers. So what we have, let me quickly talk about the structure. I've mentioned 250 hectares of job co-op. That 250 hectares of job co-op will further be divided into what we call a block of 50 hectares. So in a block of 250 hectares, you have 5 blocks inside one job cooperative. And each block will have what we call a block leader. And each block will further be subdivided into 10 hectares, what we call project cooperative cell leader. So why do that there will be visibility and traceability and making sure that everything is being done? At a cell of 10 hectares, the leader there is together with the farmers, whether they are 10 farmers, 5 farmers, he will always be there. If any one of them refuse to do the best agronomic practice, he will report. If any one of them harvest and decide to sell, he will know. So that is in the area of governance structure to ensure recovery. So now we have cell leader, which will now report to a block leader that is in a 50 hectare, and block leader into a job cooperative leader. So this job cooperative of 250 hectares, 250 is enough to start agribusiness. 250 hectares. You can approach a bank, you can get our guarantee, you can get a market to service with 250 hectares, because at an average of 4 tons per hectare, you are talking about 1,000 metric tons, and 1,000 metric tons is enough to do business. So now these 250 hectares, if you have 250 hectares of close proximity, they form what you call a cluster. So this is when they will begin to transform to small, medium, and large scale companies. So when you have a cluster, you will be able, I'm happy, somebody also, I'm sorry, I will not be able to recollect name, mention irrigation services. So when you have a cluster, and also somebody talk about vendor finance, vendor funding, inputs, they can go and deliver. So when you have a cluster, this cluster is so big enough that it can attract on its own a company that is providing irrigation service to come and set up irrigation facility or infrastructure in the midst of that cluster and begin to provide his services of irrigation. You can bring an upgrade power provider will come because the cluster is so attractive and big enough, and put off his infrastructure and begin to provide service. A seed company, a fertilizer company will look at that whole cluster and decide to come and build his own warehouse there, where he will bring his fertilizer, where he will bring his agrochemical ahead of time. And even when he sees a lot of good governance structure and visibility, a fertilizer company, that is the vendor funding, may decide to say, this cluster, you have leadership, you have everything. Take the fertilizer, use it, deliver to the market, and pay me later. So that is when you begin to have a kind of funding getting into farmers from all angles. I'm happy also, one of the presenters made mention that there is no way we can continue to rely on government for funding. It's not possible. Recall that earlier we have tried in whole Africa at Maputo Convention to see how African government can at least allocate 10% of our total budget to agriculture. It has failed. We have never achieved 10% allocation to agriculture. And recall also, one of the presenters made mention about 5% or 4% total bank lending to agriculture. That one too also it's not enough. And we also talk about government intervention, Anko Borrower program, any other government intervention is not enough. Let me quickly put something that will draw our attention, which is very, very important, to see that really agriculture deserves the kind of attention and farming that needs to be there. Number one, we have 82 million hectares in Nigeria. These 82 million hectares, we are currently using about 40 million hectares in Nigeria. Input alone, the fertilizer, mechanization, seed, crop protection product, agrochemicals, that needs to get into this 40 million hectares. If you are talking about the whole ATP, my colleague from the office of the vice president, the kind of food market in Nigeria. But input alone, if we are like 80 million hectares is 18 trillion. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. I would like you to round up as
thank you.
I'm quickly as possible.
I'm quickly rounding up, please. I'm quickly rounding up. So input alone costs 14 trillion naira. This is enough for bank to see the huge market and begin to develop product. You can come to NISAL, we sit together and develop product so that you'll be able to catch this 14 trillion naira market. Fertilizer companies, any other prospective company, farmers that wants to operate, you can come and see how you can develop products that you can take share out of this 14 trillion just from supplying inputs to farming community alone. We didn't talk about the other aspect of the value chain like that. So this is the main reason why we have this structure, so that at the end of the day, we have these clusters that will become serious business, that will attract funding from all sources, as well as attract service providers, mechanization service providers, irrigation service providers, and financial service providers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you so much. You've given us so much information there. Now, before I let you go, I just want you to, in 1 minute, respond to this. Most members of the audience here want to know how to become members of a cooperative. Registration process, who is responsible for setting up the cluster. So if you can just speak to this in 1 minute before we go on the short break.
Okay, thank you very much. Quickly, we have advertised, and if you go to our website, www.nisal.com, you will see the processes of creating Joe Cooperative. It's for any interested individual, community leaders, companies, retired FEDEMA staff. Within your community, you can sensitize farmers that are located in one place and begin to form them into cells, 10 hectares, into blocks of 50 hectares, and into a cell of a Joe Cooperative of 250 hectares. You come up with the list and the sizes of each farmer, you put them together, put the list, and you go to our website, you upload your information, and we will now link you up with our PMRO in the location where you are located, our field officers in that state, so that they will link up with you and take it up from there. They will continue to relate with you and take you through the agro-Joe Cooperative formation until when you get certified, because each Joe Cooperative will receive what you call national certificate, which means certified. It's just like going to Corporate Affairs Commission and get your certificate as a company. What that is saying, we are aware that you have a cooperative, a structure that can attract funding anytime NISAL is facilitating any funding for any crop, say ginger, cotton, cocoa, whatever crop. We know that we have these cooperatives in this location. We quickly engage them and link them with the market and link them with funding. So we established what we call an AGC bank, that is Agro-Joe Cooperative Bank. We advise that everybody should try and get registered and get certified and be in that our bank. The moment you are in that our AGC bank, you stand a chance and you are eligible for getting funding for getting connected with market. So this is what I can say about the registration process. Thank you.
Let's get Dr. Dari back. Dr. Dari, the consultant who spoke a great deal about the role of consultants and how they are to put together the systems and the structures, need a performance dashboard and all that. Dr. Dari.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Now, I know we have consultants and aspiring consultants on this call, and most of them, I'm sure, would want to hear just a little on what they should be looking to build in terms of capacity so that they can also contribute towards the development of the agri sector. So I would like your thoughts and counsel on this.
Okay, first is the first most important thing in consultancy business is your passion. You have to make a personal decision that you want to solve problems, because the critical issue in consultancy, the commodity in trade is value, is ability to be able to bring enhancement and enrichment of existing value or where there are no values at all in an organization. So I would like to say that you want to be a consultant, you must first make up your mind. There must be some element of passion. Consultancy is not a business you want to go in with the commercial tendencies at the beginning. It has to be a mindset of giving back, a mindset of creating quality, a mindset of creating value to or in an organization or to a process or to an environment. So once that is your motivation, I mean, that is critical. That must be your motivation, value generation, quality driven. Once that is settled, then there are sets of skills that a consultant must have. And basically, because of the new normal, it's a great disservice for any consultant not to be information technology savvy. You need to be able to have your hand on technology. Basically, you can see what has been going on over an hour. You can imagine a consultant that cannot connect to the Zoom or that cannot speak on the Zoom. So whatever you want to do as a consultant, first, after passion, you need to be information technology savvy. Apart from that, you need to develop excellent business communication skills. You need to be able to make presentations, effective presentation that will have mental appeal to your audience. You need to be able to write business proposals and also bankable proposals, and you need to be able to conduct at least a quasi-feasibilities. And you need to be able to conduct organizational diagnosis. So all of these skills are very critical. There are also soft skills that you need to have, like integrity. You need to be able to have reliability and dependability. As you relate with your clients, people should be able to rely on you. Okay, having said that, coming to agribusiness, you cannot become an effective consultant to agricultural ecosystem except you have relevant skills and knowledge in that field. The critical thing to be a consultant to anywhere or to anything is to have first at your disposal quality knowledge and quality skill in that area, because expectedly a consultant is supposed to bring on board an enhanced knowledge and enhanced skill to an environment where we have professionals and practitioners. Once you are named or tagged consultant, it means you have some real sets of skills or real sets of knowledge to add value to an existing value that is there, or to create a new value as the case may be. So going to agricultural sector, I am not particularly an expert in agriculture, but from a pocket of knowledge that I have, and because I came from particularly a very poor family, and I did some local conservative farming, I know that you need to have knowledge about the finance. And of course, because I was a banker I was in the industry for about 20 years, I know that agricultural finance is coming up. I'm very happy to tell you that Mr. Akinade has been able to open our eyes that a lot can be done by the private sector in agri. I mean, I'm also aware, because we are in close touch, that he's thinking in that direction. And several other practitioners in the financial ecosystem are also chatting up that area. So you need a consultant to bring these stakeholders together to weave all these synergies and ensure that they are functional. But for you to be able to do that, first you need to have fundamental knowledge in agricultural sector. And there is nothing wrong in learning. So once you're a consultant, you can learn anything you want to learn. So you need a lot of reading culture. You need a lot of painstaking study to be able to develop yourself in a particular field. But you know, with the COVID-19, if you ask me, you may not necessarily be in the essential practicing, but you should be a consultant to the essential. So right now, I'm developing new mindset to be able to consult for people in the agricultural ecosystem. I've started reading, I've started building up libraries on agronomy, on agricultural finance, on agricultural equipment. I'm already reading because I know, because that is the way to go. I need to make myself relevant. So if any consultant is on board hearing me, you may not necessarily be a practitioner or have critical competencies in agri, but you can go and enhance and enrich your knowledge in agri to be able to go into that ecosystem and consult for them. But basically, you must have skills, you must have knowledge, and you must have the attitude to be able to practice in those environments.
All right, thank you very much. We have Akiale back.